Welcome to the Bourbon and Breakthroughs podcast, where entrepreneurs reveal their biggest breakthroughs, both in life and in business. I'm your host, Chris Goodman, and I'm a life and business coach on a mission to help people change their lives and grow their businesses. On this show, you'll get to distill your own life-changing lessons from my friends, clients, and the best entrepreneurs around the world. During our conversation, we feature and taste a new or notable bourbon, or something like it, and raise a glass to personal development, business growth, and squeezing every drop out of life. So whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, join us for this episode of Bourbon and Breakthroughs. Cheers. Welcome back to Bourbon and Breakthroughs. Today, I have my dear friend, mentor, colleague, someone I look up to, someone I've worked with, someone I've worked for, all the above, Mr. Todd Paxton. Thank you for being on Bourbon and Breakthroughs today.
Thank you, man. The pleasure is all mine. And man, we've already just having good times as always.
So if you're watching the video, you can probably see my face is still a little red because before we hit record here, I was trying to get Todd laughing. I like to have people laughing when I start the show. And I said a couple off-color things and didn't realize there were some young ears in the room behind him.
And what's funny, you didn't realize that they're not even right there.
Oh, yeah. All right. So if you're listening to this, watching this, you're getting a good introduction that Todd and I don't have any fun together.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So we've known each other for 12 years. Can you believe that?
That's crazy, man. I remember showing you a house from an internet lead. Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you didn't catch Todd on the Relentless Growth episodes that we recorded before all of the Bourbon and Breakthroughs podcasts came out, you can go back. We'll put a link in the show notes if you want to go back and check that episode out. It was one of the most commented on at the time and most as far as messages I got back about, man, you had some really great wisdom to drop. You had some really great stories. Todd talked about, well, let me just read your bio real quick for everybody who did not catch that episode. Todd is an explorer, a retired intensive care unit registered nurse, turned real estate agent, investor, coach, mentor, and world traveler, on top of father, husband, all of the other things that he has going on in his life. He takes it all in and always looks for an opportunity and a good time. He also leads one of the top 1%. I'm going to slow down for a second. I want you to wrap your head around that. One of the top 1% real estate teams in the entire country. He owns dozens of rental homes, apartments, commercial properties, and develops subdivisions. This is just the work stuff. This isn't talking about all of the philanthropy that he's involved in, the coaching, and not just like mindset and business coaching, but community coaching and people who could really use his influence around town. He's easily the most generous person I know, and he loves bourbon. So we're in good company today.
As I age, my body isn't enjoying it as much as I do, but that's okay.
Yeah, it hits a little different after about 35, I've realized. So, well, let's anything to add there, Todd, because you have a way of being like, that's not really who I am, or that's not all I do. Is there anything that you would qualify there?
Yeah, the Chat GPT did a pretty good job of that one there. So, no,
well,
man,
you gave it to me, so
yeah, and I'm pretty proud of that 1%. And it's not just one brand; it is across all 1.6-ish million realtors in the country, and that was told by us here a couple months back. I was just like, oh wow, cool. Now what? But when you pause and think about that, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and a lot of time. And I was in a mastermind last week, and they said, "Oh, you spend the winters in Florida. You've got it made, and this and this and this and da 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 da." And we were talking about it was about the path to becoming a millionaire, and then once you're a millionaire, well, what do you do then, right? Like, I guess I'll just go for 2 million, and then keep going. And I said, "Hold on, bro." And he's a young dude in his early 30s, good friend. And I said, "You see me on the beach now. You didn't see me grinding 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago. Now, I'll still grind. I have no problem working. I enjoy it. It's very purposeful and it gives life to me. But that just seeing those numbers come in, and I've never been a comparison person. It's just like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. So we're really proud of that at the Paxton Group. That's kind of neat.
Well, I think that's it. And man, I've worked with you, so I know firsthand your work ethic. I have a story about that I'm actually going to tell after we get into our bourbon here. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you're not going to put the two of us together and not get some war stories out of it. So, well, and let me clean that up too, because some people who don't know us, they may not understand that the depth of that relationship. And when I was at, let's see, this was 2011, I quit law school and started. No, it was actually before. No, I forgot. God, that's how long it's been, man, that I actually forgot how this went down. I had gotten accepted to law school and was looking for a house to move into and wanted to close and be living in that house before law school started. So that probably was late 2010, early 2011, somewhere around there. And so long story short, an internet lead came into Todd's work and he showed me the house. He had no idea that opening that door was going to cause him so much pain in the ass for the rest of his life.
We both have platinum hair, and maybe we're the cause of each other's, right?
A lot more since then. I'm going to zip through this though, because if anybody caught the first episode with us, they know it, or they can go back and catch up there. But long story short, we got into business together, built one of the most successful teams in the region. And, we're at that point, we're selling 235, 250 homes a year or something like that. Mm-hmm. And in our part of the world, that does not make us instantly filthy rich, because we were just teasing about this yesterday. Our average sale price at the time was about $185,000. That's the total sale, not half the sale or one side. That's the whole sale
for a whole house.
That was in the dirt with it.
Yeah.
So we were working really hard, just as Todd mentioned, they were working really hard to pull this off. But it wasn't just the transactional work that goes into every real estate deal. It was, how do you expand your team? How do you scale this business? How do you lead people? And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about leadership and hiring in particular today, because that's one of Todd's greatest gifts is leadership and inspiring people by building a great conversation around them. So I want to dig into that. But yeah, so fast forward, and here you are today, still top 1% in the country, and expanding that net worth and continuing to give back to people and help them grow their life, their business, and creating bigger conversations around them. Yeah. So before we go any further, let's go ahead and get something in our glasses here. Today, we're sponsored by our friends at Heaven's Door. Trying to get this in front of the camera here. Heaven's Door is, if you haven't seen it on the shelves, it is relatively new to the scene. It is Bob Dylan's brand. And if you don't know who Bob Dylan is, just stop the podcast right here and just do your and just pull up Spotify. It's funny. I was talking with somebody the other day. I'll say a millennial, and I'm a millennial too, so it's weird to say that. But I said something about Bob Dylan. They go, I don't really know much of his stuff. No. And I said, I bet you do. You just don't know that you do. And I said, you ever heard Guns N' Roses Knocking on Heaven's Door? Like, I love that song. It's classic. I'm like, yeah. That was a ripoff of Bob Dylan's version. So, All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix. Oh, I love that song. I'm like, yeah, that was originally Bob Dylan's. But we're not here to talk about music. We're here to drink their spirit that they have for us today. We're drinking their straight bourbon whiskey. And I love this just to start our conversation here. Bob Dylan said, I wanted to create a collection of American whiskeys that in their own way tell a story. And this one comes with a story. This is a super small batch type of bourbon that we're having today, 10 barrels or less. So they're picking through thousands of barrels to get the best, 10 barrels or less to make this one. And it's aged at least 7 years. The bourbon is distilled and aged in Tennessee, but it doesn't use the typical Lincoln County process, which makes the body of this and the mouthfeel kind of thick, almost chewy, some people would say, in a good way, like a good Kentucky bourbon, yet it maintains the fruity sweetness of a Tennessee whiskey. The result is a smooth and lasting finish with notes of vanilla and baking spices layered over toasted oak. Does that make you want to get into it or what? I mean, no, or do you not?
It had me at baking spices and the vanilla and the toasted, yeah. Why are we still waiting? Okay, good.
I'm going to see if the microphone can capture that, because the way the bottle is shaped gets you this kind of fantastic glug when you first pour it there. And you can see some of the classic artwork here on the label. I'm actually going to invite everybody to the show notes to go to the website and check out more about the art behind the brand. They're really taking an artist approach to this, a sort of craftsman approach to the bourbon. So let's just go ahead here, Todd. Cheers, brother.
Cheers to you, my friend.
Oh, wow. So this is actually the first time I'm having this. I met with their rep yesterday, Adam, and Adam is a really good dude. He knows his stuff, and he got behind this brand, I want to say about 4 to 6 months ago. And I asked him, why this brand? You could have picked any brand. And he said, man, they showed me their 10-year plan, and I absolutely believe in what they're doing and where they're going. And now that I've tasted a couple of their expressions, I understand why he jumped on. It's funny. The first hit I got was actually like a dark cherry flavor. And I do right after that get the vanilla and the baking spices.
Yep.
But at 92 proof, man, this does not hit. Like, there's nothing terribly spicy or there's no burn that you get on some higher proof bourbons.
The word I thought was, it's not harsh.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are just, we're here to make whiskey. We're here to put bourbon out. We're, doing all things like this is enjoyable.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. And I going back for the second pull there, I completely see the Tennessee sort of corn fruity finish there that you would almost get off of, like, they're going to probably kill me for saying this, but almost like a JD where where you get that classic, what's the word I'm looking for? Texture almost.
It's a lighter color as well, which
right.
I noticed that when the bottle arrived, I was like, oh, it's not as dark as some. Not good, not bad. It's neat. And to me, it is a smoother.
I agree. I think part of that is because of the way the bottle is shaped. It's built up really tall, so the light goes kind of through it. Because it is aged for 7 years, and not a lot of bourbons meet that threshold, especially when they're new to the market. So thanks again to our friends at Heaven's Door, everybody. If you're curious about this, scroll down in the show notes, and you'll find a code there where you can actually go and get your own bottle of Heaven's Door. They have several expressions. I've tried the Decades series, and that is delicious as well. So if you're going to try one or two of them, I might combine that Decades with another one to experiment with. So, Todd, the show's called Bourbon and Breakthroughs. We've got our bourbon. Let's talk about some breakthroughs.
Sure.
I actually had a breakthrough yesterday when I went to drop this bottle off to you, and you didn't even know it.
Oh, okay. All right.
So Todd and I live close enough to each other that I could actually hand deliver his bottle. And when I went, his father was standing outside. And you got to know Todd's dad. How would you describe, like, if someone were to encounter your dad for the first time, how would you describe him?
A giant, gracious lion that's really a teddy bear.
And visually, he's about what, 6'4", probably
6'4".
225, something like that.
He was a lot more than that. He's thinned down. He's probably in the mid twos.
Yeah.
He only wears overalls every day. He will be buried in them. And he doesn't really wear a shirt under the overalls. So he's got the tan lines. He's just always, a man of few words, a man of powerful words. And I learned a lot of my work ethic and humor from Daddy.
So all of that came through in about 2 minutes, because you're right. He chooses his words powerfully. Mm-hmm. And I said something, I don't even remember what I said, but I won't forget what he said back, which was, well, I don't know where Todd got all these brains to do all this, but he sure works hard, and he always has. And he went right into a story, and he said, I don't think you'll mind me telling this story. He said, I remember when we were, a long time ago, when we didn't have much money.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd, it was summertime and he was working real hard, and he'd come home and he just didn't have a place to cool off because we didn't have the money to run the air conditioning in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, but I would run the air conditioning overnight so we could sleep, but we could only run it in one room. And it was my bedroom. And, I'd sleep in the bed and Todd would sleep on the floor. But when I got up this is your dad saying this, when I got up at 4 a.m. to go to work, by the time I got ready about a half hour later, I'd tap Todd and tell him, hey, you can get in the bed. And he'd say, okay. And I'd say, go ahead and make sure you get up for school. Oh, I won't forget. And he said he always got up for school, no matter how hard he worked, no matter how hot it was, no matter if we ran out of money, he always did what a good son would do.
Oh,
yeah,
that's sweet.
And I love that story because that's how I've come to know you. You've got a big heart. You do the right thing, hard work, yet also you don't gripe about it. You just go, okay, let's just do that.
I guess I don't know any different. It's just that simple, I guess.
So what kind of breakthroughs have you had, in the past, let's just say recently, what kind of breakthroughs have you had on the heels of, growing up with next to nothing, working really hard, and coming to appreciate everything? Let's start with leadership. How has that affected and informed your leadership when it comes to like the breakthroughs that you've had to go, this is what works and this is what doesn't work?
Can I, before we get to leadership, if it's okay, I'd like to share a breakthrough in life.
Please.
If I may, this, not a lot of people do. Last May 1st, I spent 5 days in the ICU and with septic and pneumonia. I was septic and had pneumonia and COVID. We were in Florida and 5 days in the ICU and just really opened my eyes. And I've held death in my hands several hundred times as an ICU nurse, several states, and just being there and not really knowing if I would make it to C-47, and just like, oh my goodness. And I won't get into too many details here, but it was classified as a near-death experience. And coming out of that, then gaining my health back, then in October of last year, and again in October and April, we went to Guatemala and did a week-long mission trip with our church, and we built a house for a local family. Well, this year we were in Guatemala for 2 weeks. And the first week we were at a college for Spanish to learn Spanish. And then the second week we went and built the house. I've done more than, I would need two hands now to count how many times we've done these mission trips to build a house. And we're talking a 288 square foot home for a family.
Wow.
It takes us 3 to 4 days, weather permitting and crew permitting. And it's concrete floor, metal roof, windows, and, the smiles that you see on some of these folks. But coming back from Guatemala this time, there was something in some of the food wasn't prepared, and we all had the belly stuff and not really feeling great.
Like
food after a few days. What's that? Like
food poisoning, something along those lines?
Yeah. I don't think some people had cleaned the food well enough, and the locals there might be used to it, but our GI system is not. And both Lisa and I, we lost 8 or 10 pounds apiece.
Wow.
I've got that to lose, and she really didn't. So it was we're maybe even still physically fatigue wise in some sense of recovery mode, as a physician of mine shared with me today. And the thing is, man, like we had to reacclimate to the American way and just really deepened a sense of gratitude for all of the opportunities that we have here in this country. And when you said I didn't gripe about it, I don't really there's no need to, man. We have it made, and all the simplicities of our life now. Just 2 weeks in Guatemala and a few months over the years have really deepened my gratitude for all of the opportunities that we have here. And it really is simple to just, love each other and be grateful and be kind to each other. And it deepened that thought for me. And, why are we griping? Money, no money, or whatever the case may be, and no comparison. We have it made, bro. We really have it made here. So that was a big breakthrough, was reacclimating. Buddy of mine said, "You're retoxifying to America." I'll use a different word. Reacclimating to the American way, man. It was a big, big breakthrough in the last couple months here.
What do you think you had to unlearn to have that breakthrough?
For example, a hairdresser friend of mine, and she's, does her hair. She just does awesome. And she was there, and like the second day, she was like, "Oh, I chipped a nail," and all these things. So she had seeing people unlearn their habits here, that we are grateful enough to have the opportunity to drink a nice bottle of bourbon. I went and got a rocks glass, and I pushed a button on a big machine in my kitchen, and a few ice cubes fell out. I get to sit here and not have the sun beating, like all these things. I don't know if I had to unlearn it, but it just really deepened, I think, my appreciation for the small things, and they're everywhere. And it was a borderline, had to not be jaded for some to working with other folks. No shame of them. They haven't been through experiences, and we're all in different experiences ourselves, but you don't really need XYZ. You may want XYZ, but so that was kind of a neat unlearn, relearn situation, a breakthrough I had. So
how did that affect how you lead your team?
They're realtors. There's the disclaimer. So, and I love them. They're just awesome. We definitely have the all-star team right now, and, helping them know that, an emergency is urgent or important. And I've always said there's no emergencies in real estate. My previous occupation, if I'd walk into a patient room and I'd see a certain heart rhythm on the monitor, that is important and urgent. And you have to take action immediately. The home inspector calls and this and that. "Oh, my deal's blowing up." It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And helping the mindset of people understanding that not everything is a forest fire and has to be put out right away. It's going to be okay. We're all going to be okay.
This is one of the greatest lessons you've taught me. And forever, I don't know if you remember, we had "This is a process" written at the top of our big whiteboard. A habit that I still have behind me. If you're watching the video, this is where I get the whiteboard fever. This, what looks like a madman scribbling behind me. That's just,
I want to come over and just whiteboard some stuff out with.
I thought you were going to say, I want to come over and erase it all and make me lose my mind because it's all.
No. I like a messy whiteboard.
So we had on the top of we had a couple things. Actually, this is probably worth people hearing. We had "This is a process" at the top of the board because I get impatient, and everybody that gets into real estate, wants everything yesterday, and they want to be an expert right now. And
yeah,
so and then on top of that, everybody who is experiencing a real estate transaction, whether they're buying or selling or investing, they want it done yesterday too. And they need to be reminded this is a process. Like you gotta follow the steps here, and we will get there as soon as we follow the process. What are some of the things you remember having on the board?
Move fast and break things. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And so we were anytime you can tell the old bull and young bull story in a podcast, kudos to you, brother. That was excellent.
I think maybe you should tell it because I don't think that everybody's heard it.
No. Do you want me to? No, I'm not.
I want you to make it like rated R instead of NC-17.
So there were two bulls at the top of the hill overlooking the cliff. Bright sunny day, plenty of grass in the pasture. These bulls had it made. One of them was old and one of them was young. And the almost said millennial bull, the young bull, the young bull said to the old bull, "Oh, look down at that pasture. Look at all those cows. I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna run down there, and I'm gonna
Have my
have
way.
me have my way with one of them cows. I'm gonna run down there and have my way with one of them cows." Old bull looks at the young bull and says, "Okay, you run on down there, young bull. You run down there and you can have one of them cows. Because, young bull, I'm going to walk down there and I'm going to have them all." And just knowing the sage wisdom of older and younger, I think that was really cool. And you're doing it in coaching. We do it in coaching, leading, mentoring. And when we had, it's a process, like slow down to speed up. And 3 or 4 inches over was move fast and break things. That's old bull, young bull conversation there. Mm-hmm. We got to move fast and break things. Okay, cool. That's what growth is. I get that. I was an offensive lineman. I'm built for battle, not finesse. I understand wrestling on the wrestling mat. I will go break some things. I don't know how fast I'll move, but I will break things. That's no big deal. But we both have to slow down, both of us young bulls, and understand it's a process. And it will work if you work.
I love that you said I'm built for battle, not finesse, because it's true, but you're also one of the best at language finesse, at helping somebody out of their own way. And I don't think that came naturally. I think that's a skill you had to build and really get a lot of reps at. And I took the brunt of those reps sometimes, but you gave it right back.
Platinum hair.
That's right. So for somebody who is, let's say they have an aspiration to be in the top 1% of their industry, whatever it may be, or even just, improve their life, even if they don't own their business. And they're in the thick of it, right? They're in the middle of moving fast and breaking things, or getting ready to move fast and break things. And that's a whole intimidating process in itself. How would you describe what you've learned about creating the conversation around the person, creating that finesse around them, and not just being the bull that shoves them into it and yells at them, do it better, I'll shut up and get out of the way. What do you think?
One of my coaches in an introductory call, he said, "What kind of a coach were you on the football field?" What kind of a coach? Because I coached high school wrestling, JV 1 year. And then I was assistant varsity wrestling coach 7 years. He said, "What kind of coach were you on the mat or on the field?" "I don't know. What do you mean? We won. We went to state champ. We did awesome. Like, we had a lot of good success." He said, "Did you grab them by the singlet or by the jersey and get in their face? Or did you get to their side and put your arm around them?" And I thought long and hard about that. And I said, the most part, I'd get to their side and put my arm around them. Like you mentioned, if it hits the fan, if somebody stepped out of line, or if somebody don't mess with our people, right? I will stand up for our people. We can get red-faced if we need to, but 99% of the time, you lead and you coach with love. And I think that was what was really big, is that I've learned that it's not my way or the highway. I have learned, and the breakthrough, when you said, "Hey, we're going to have a podcast and we're going to drink some bourbon and talk about business and leadership and life breakthroughs," I'm like, what's been the biggest breakthrough in my leadership skills in the last 1, 3, 5, 10 years? I think the biggest one is to meet people where they are. There's many ways to get to Cape Canaveral, Florida. You can walk there, but let's say you needed to be at Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center for a launch on Monday at noon. Somebody might walk, might run, might ride a bicycle. They might ride a boat. They might fly to Indianapolis, down to Orlando, and back and forth and drive. They might get an Uber the whole way. They might go to Boston and ride a sailboat all the way. There's many ways to get to the goal of X. It doesn't necessarily matter how you get there as long as we get there. And that's what I've learned is I can show you. They asked me to do a CMA today, or teach a class coming up of CMA. And I literally texted, like spat out my drink. I'm like, our team tells me I'm the worst at doing a CMA, a market analysis. They're like, Todd, you take 2 minutes. I'm like, I've done it 20 years and it's not rocket science. Put a price on it. The market dictates, right? I mean, in summary, but I'm just like, it doesn't matter as long as we help that client get to the closing. We all do it differently. We all go somewhere differently for the launch on Monday. We all do a CMA differently. But when we meet people where they are and put their goals at the forefront to help them, I think that's the biggest breakthrough for me, because you met my daddy. He's like, here's how this is done. And you can learn how to do it better. That's okay, as long as the job's done. And just meeting people where they are.
What about when you know somebody's got more potential, or you know that they are not, I mean, I'm just going to level with you. When you know somebody's not doing a good job and they can do better? Because I feel like this pops up with my clients all the time. They hire someone because they see their potential, or they see their track record, and they're like, you can go to the moon with me here. And then something happens. Their performance drops, their attitude drops. They have a couple of failures or setbacks, and they start acting like a victim. Something changes. And instead of meeting them where they are, the leader morphs into this person that you were describing before, that's getting in their face and sort of trying to whip them into better performance. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that?
This may not be what you would expect, but here's what I've learned. You can actually live and work without the people that you think you can't live without. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, say it one more time, because I think for a lot of people, they're trapped in that.
Yes.
I would be up a creek without this person on my team. Right? Like it would all fall apart if I lost this one.
You will still float downstream. It's fine. Yeah. You can actually live without the people you think you can't live without. Period. Now, don't take that as flippant. Don't take that as burn through people. Mm-hmm. I've had a coach, he said, you've got to fire that person. I said, I'm not firing that person. They do a wonderful job. And I'm sure that person can go find a better boss than me. I'm sure I could go find a better worker than them. I love them, man. And we're in this, and we're in the battle, and it's okay. And I have grace, maybe the big word. I have grace with their flaws because I request grace for my flaws back. You know? So the grace is a big thing for me. But don't in hiring, don't put all the eggs in one basket. They say hire slow, fire fast, all those things. But I really think that you can do this in a different way when you evolve your leadership skills and your traits, and the markets evolve, whatever industry you're in, everything's changing. You have to evolve as well. A lot of times, a good, strong coach will see more in people than those people see themselves, period, end of the story. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when you literally or figuratively, my love language is touch, put my arm around you and say, talk to me. Just talk to me. I want to be your ears. And then we'll figure this out together. The conversation is the relationship. So just go deep and be their ears, be their confidant. And then that's when you put a whiteboard on your wall and you draw out an org chart or a task list. And can this person do this and this person this, a pro-con list, or any of those natures. And it really is that simple, like a football X's and O's on the D line, going across it, like working through it mentally. I'm a scuba diver. And the number one rule, they said, plan your dive your plan. Okay. So it's the whole 7 P's. Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. Plan it out and implement. And a lot of times, a lot of leadership is, sheets of paper, whiteboards, notes in your phone, whatever. That's what a lot of leadership is. And you just have to sit on that and think about that and get up a little bit early if you have to, meditate on it, plan it out, whatever works for you. But getting them in the right seat once they're on the bus is the key element. So get the right people on the bus, then get them in the right seat.
How do you get the right people on your bus?
That's a great question. You always want to, just like I drove by a house today and the grass was tall. Yes, we've had a lot of rain, but I'm like, maybe they've moved out and forgot to mow the grass. I looked her up and she got a new phone number like in May. So, maybe she's moved and forgot this. And I called her. She's like, oh, I didn't know my grass was tall. I still live there. Okay, cool. Can I help you get in touch with the lawn mowing company? I've got a house right across the street. I'd love to buy more rental property in your neighborhood, just type of thing. So just understanding to always look for the opportunities out there is huge. We used to have those business cards. We would hand a waiter, waitress, a server. It said, hey, really appreciate the work you've done. If you're interested in a career in real estate, I'd love to treat you to lunch, type of thing. Emailing out to the database, whatever it is, finding talent everywhere. Always be looking for that, because you never know when you show some kid a house and he just incessantly talks and tells you everything he knows. You never know that you fast forward a decade or so, you'd be on a couple podcasts with him.
Hey, what's up? This is Chris Goodman, and we'll be back to your episode in about 45 seconds. Listen, if you're ready to take your life and your business up to your next level of success, freedom, fulfillment, fun, all of it, you need the help of a top coach. All the best in the world at anything have a great coach in their corner. They can help you identify your goals, develop a plan to achieve them, give you accountability, give you support, give you guidance all along your way up to the top. Now, look, most coaches are created equally, we'll say. They don't perform equally, however. So if you want to get the most out of your coaching, you need to work with somebody who has a proven track record of success. And that's where I come in. I have over 15,000 hours of coaching people just like you. And after coaching countless entrepreneurs, CEOs, executives, influencers, real estate agents, you name it, I've probably coached them. I can do the same for you. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and contact me. Go to GoodmanCoachingInc.com. That's GoodmanCoachingInc.com. Fill out the quick application and let's talk about coaching you to your goals. Now let's get back to the episode. How many deals did we work in our time together? 1,000 almost, probably. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Easy. Across the whole team, and traveled the country. Actually, I meant to say this when I was reading your bio, that I counted how many quote certifications, and I say quote because we didn't see them as certifications. We just saw them as, we like to learn and we like to grow, and this is what it took to learn and grow. Yeah, but I counted over 24 certifications that you and I went through side by side. Isn't that crazy? My Southern just come out. Isn't that crazy?
ain't that something?
Ain't that?
And I said, look, we were in the mastermind. I said, I've spent, this is not bragging, this is a fact. I've spent 6 figures on traveling the country and listening to other people that have paved the path before us. Stand on the shoulders of the giants before you and listen and learn and be curious and be a student, and it will work it out. It will work out if you work, type thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let me go back a couple of steps.
Yeah, man.
First of all, I want to tell everybody that I'm digging this bourbon. The more I drink it, the more I like it. And this is something I'm going to have on my shelves to surprise guests with, because I don't think very many people have tried it. And I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor. I really work to get stuff that is fantastic just because it's fantastic, not because they're a sponsor.
I got to think the artwork on that bottle will really look good and nice in a glass, cabinet or what have you. So,
it's definitely a more distinguished look than some of the other stuff you might pick up.
Thank you, Heaven's Door.
So let me go back a step and ask you, it's one thing to always be looking for talent and always be open to the person across from me might work for me in 10 years, even something like that.
Work with me, not for me. Work with me.
Did I say for? My bad. How do you know when you spot talent?
You don't. Sometimes you don't, right? Everyone interviews well. Period. Everyone interviews well. It's the 91st day that matters a lot of times.
No, I'm going to disagree there. I remember one particular interview you sat in on, and I asked 80 questions, and 78 times this person came back with, I don't know.
Oh, well, most people interview well.
I'm just teasing, but yeah.
No, so, I really think 2 ears, 1 mouth. God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. Shut your mouth, use your ears, use your mouth when it's appropriate, and listen to what they say, observe. You have also 2 eyes to observe how people act. Are they friendly? Is the waiter, waitress, nice to each other? Are they griping? What happens if the order's wrong? I mean, all the things. How do they respond to having 8 tables? Or that's one example, but just be observant, pay attention, and listen. I really don't know, dude. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Look for good people.
You just gave me an idea. Let's play a game. I'm going to give you a prompt. All you have to do is fill in the words at the end of the sentence. And I won't set you up. The best thing a leader can do is
1-word answers.
If I'd say shorter, the better. It doesn't have to be 1 word, but I think brevity.
The best thing a leader can do is care.
The worst thing a leader can do is
be selfish.
You have the right talent when they
grow themselves and the organization at the same time.
That's good. I'm going to mark that. I like that. It's time to fire somebody when
it's too late.
Okay, wait, say more about that, because a lot of people haven't felt that pain yet.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Good call. Man, it's performance is one thing. Culture is another. And, in my world, I want the will. We can teach you the skill. And when the willpower isn't there, I think that's the biggest issue. If your ethics aren't there, that's the biggest issue. Here's you, here's them. If you're not you don't have to be perfect alignment, but if you're not pretty well aligned, you want something in here. You don't want something over here.
And for everybody who can't see the video right now, Todd's holding his hands palm to palm. And when they're out of alignment, they're twisted, and you can tell it looks like a bird flying away. That movement, that's when you're out of alignment with somebody. But when they are in alignment, it's like your hands are perfectly aligned. Things are easy almost. Things are simple. Communication is flowing.
And in some industries, you've got metrics, you've got, protocols that you have to meet. So those are pretty easy benchmarks to compare to. Hey, you're not performing. We need to shake hands, part as friends. But for me, man, it's just really it's culture. It's how are you? Are you ethical? Are you friendly? Are you a nice human being? And, do you have the willpower and the growth mindset? Are you learning based? Are you a team player? And one of our other pillars is a servant's heart. Or do you care about other people?
I still use the alphabet soup that we came up with, that somebody has to have I should put some context there.
Yep.
We had all these notebooks because we went to training every other day. We're in a new training. We had all these notebooks, and in one of them, in the front cover, I had scribbled down a bunch of acronyms or abbreviations, I should say, of things that we were looking for in talent. Like if we're going to interview somebody for the team, they must, and I'm going to highlight that word, must have X, Y, and Z. And we listed them out. And a couple of them were, you just mentioned, like growth focused. They must love to grow just because they want to, right? They want to improve. I always think of that line, when the game is on the line, champions want the ball, kind of thing, right? When it comes to growing your mindset and your skill set, champions want to expand that. They are growth focused. Another one was TOS, a trajectory of success. They have to, like, if I look at your personal track record and your work track record and put them up next to each other, I say, yeah, or I should be able to see it. I should be able to see an upward trajectory of some kind of success, right? Like,
and it might be worth noting that you up this mountain, I'm trying to say visual things for the listeners. Up this mountain, you might hit a valley for a little bit. And then you're going to go back up that mountain, but from right to left, if you will, as long as that TOS is a positive indicator, that's what you want to see.
And, we can talk about emerging talent or unproven talent that, maybe somebody's right out of college and they haven't had that much time to build a career that says this is their upward trajectory. But you can look for other things. And that's why I say it's so critical to look at the personal life there with it. Do they take leadership roles in their personal life? Do they do things just because they want to that indicate this person is fine with responsibility and taking charge when they need to?
The most recent addition to the pillars, I call them the pillars of TPG, is servant's heart. Because, in our industry, and I'm talking real estate sales or property management or rentals or flips, if you don't have a servant's heart, I'm not interested in being a partner.
So how do you discern whether somebody does have that?
You over time, time on task over time, I believe is a key element here. You'll learn who's in it for themselves, who's in it for serving others.
Okay.
And it takes time, I think, to learn that, who is self-serving and who is others serving.
Okay. I liked how you were doing that before. I'm going to go back to that style of question. The biggest mistake you can make when hiring somebody is
falling in love too fast.
Okay, tell me more. What do you mean?
Just I need XYZ, and I think you're XYZ. Sign here and start today. Don't fall in love too fast in the interview process. Something you and I learned: don't take 2 months to interview. Don't take 58 steps or whatever it was. But don't hire by necessity, I think, is the right answer.
Yeah, I think, or out of relief, because we did that.
Don't hire out of relief. I like that better.
Yeah, but I think they are different, and both are critical errors, nonetheless. But
no doubt.
Okay. The most important thing to keep the people you do have happy and motivated is
culture, love, and care, grace.
Let's say somebody has an organization that doesn't have a cohesive culture. They're still storming, or maybe they've just newly created a team and they don't know what they feel like they don't know what they're doing anyway. What are the first steps? Let me reframe that. What's the most important first step in creating a culture of love and care and grace and productivity at the same time?
Hire a coach and listen to them, then take action. Yeah. Do your values align? Are you when you put two humans into a room, there's going to be differences. There's going to be potential drama. There's going to be emotions. There's going to be something. So not everyone is like you, Mr. or Mrs. Leader. That's the thing I think is important to learn is how to work with each other and how to also know your own strengths and weaknesses. For example, I graduated with a 2.2, and you said, I like this style of questioning. Todd, you probably did just okay on fill in the blank at school. So fill in the blank here. Just by doing that, bro, in real time, hopefully is making for a better interview. You're able to pull that out, guide it where you want the conversation to go. And that, listeners, is a real-time example of great leadership. So thank you.
Well, thank you for teaching me that, because I think a lot of, let's just call them leaders, even though they don't identify that way, they're people who are getting things done.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the getting things done only goes so far when you're not getting more leverage. And we learn to create leverage by creating bigger conversations around people, by dreaming bigger and having people step up to that dream, by seeing potential and saying, hey, I really think I'll never forget. We were sitting in a conversation. We were setting goals for the year, and we did our best to always set them in about October, because and most businesses should do this, I believe, because it takes a couple months to get everything ready to go. And then, by the time you're into December, whatever you're producing at that point is heading into the next year. So we would sit down in October and do our goal planning. And this one agent said something like she thought she could do 24 deals in that year, which is 2 deals a month. And you and I just looked over at each other, and it was all in the look of just like, yeah, right. You can do probably 40. And so we had a quick break, and we decided, yeah, we're definitely going to push this agent. So we came back, and you created this conversation around her of, I totally talk about love, care, and grace that you said earlier. That's where you met her. And you said, I understand you're relatively new at this. You got a lot to learn. You're looking at these other agents and thinking, I don't know how I'm going to keep up. And everybody in this room would agree you can do more than 2 deals a month. And I think you asked everybody, and everybody's like nodding and shaking their head like, yeah, of course you can. And she raised it to 36. And I think she closed that year out at about 42 deals.
42.
If I remember right.
Yeah, 42.
So that was all done through words. Right?
Sure.
And I think when you said you're quoting the book Fierce Conversations, that the conversation is the relationship. And that conversation that you created around her as the leader set the pace for her entire year. Her setting the pace for the entire year changed her family tree in terms of wealth and opportunities. They took vacations that they wouldn't have taken otherwise. She met clients that are still clients today, like all kinds of things, because you as the leader stepped in and said, I'm going to create a more powerful conversation around this person, even though they can't see it, even though they're not there yet. I'm going to stretch them. For somebody who hasn't gone through the 24 certifications or plus that we have, how do they learn to do that at a very high level?
It is a balancing act. You got to know when to push. You got to know when to grab them by the jersey and tell them they can do more. And you got to know when to put your arm around them. And that just takes time, man. It takes time. And I think I failed enough in the early days. You and I failed enough in the early days that we're able to discuss this a decade later on a podcast, right? So be okay. I think internally, be okay with failing. Embrace failure. The fear of loss is a greater motivator than an opportunity to gain. And we live with so much fear. Go out, be a little more fearless every day. Today, I'm going to be less fearful. I'm going to be more fearless than I was before. I'm going to go out and face what I need to face. And then with the people you're leading, I get to take my son to soccer conditioning tonight. We still don't know if he's going to make the team, right? Dad, when will I know if I make the team? I don't know, but you got to go to conditioning first. You got to find out if they have to know if you can do this. And then you go to practice, and the practice to go to the games. And it's the same thing as a leader. It's up to you, Mr. and Mrs. Leader, to practice in real time, not with real people, but practice that and then learn Go learn the DISC assessment. Go learn any of the personality behavioral assessments out there. I love the DISC. I love it, love it, love it. And just learn your own first and learn to watch out for your own biases. And as you learn others and how to work with them, just as important are their traits, are yours, and knowing how those intertwine with each other. So I think it's a lot of personality stuff. It's just learning a lot of personality, how that works, to be able to lead them to their goal and understand that a lot of people have a lot of fear.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but I think people who get into small business and are doing the work themselves are playing checkers, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
cause and effect, and it starts to work. And it's like, okay, this is the way I set this up, and then I make the jump, and I get to collect the chips, or in this case, cash. And after, I don't know, several years or enough hours of that, you go, there's probably a better way to do that. And then you start playing chess, and it's like, okay, I got to really be strategic in where I set the pieces, the types of pieces, and thinking much more long-term about who is on my team here and how I, not in a selfish way, but how we deploy that person in their skill set and in their particular zone of genius. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're playing a completely different game. And one thing that you never seemed to have a whole lot of resistance about was moving into playing chess. Like it seemed like you were like, okay, yeah, this doesn't work anymore. Let's do something different. What advice would you give to somebody who's in that transition now between checkers and chess?
We've heard it a million times, the acronym or analogy, I'm not sure, for team. Together, everyone achieves more. We don't know. We leaders, another coach of mine, she said, you be careful from suffering, which I don't love the word. Don't suffer from leadership loneliness, because it can be an island. And one day you and I might write a course on that.
Right.
Leadership loneliness. So when you have other people in your world to expose to you your blind spots, cover your blind spots. That's how I learned is, hey, 20 years ago, would you mind listening to me while I make this phone call? And I would love your open criticism, open and honest, constructive criticism, good, bad feedback, all of it. Hey, this is and just make the call and then ask them. You have to trust each other, obviously, but getting their feedback, you're able to be a little bit better checker player until you learn to play chess. Mm-hmm. And then when you're playing chess, have a coach, have a group, a mastermind of people to bounce ideas off. What are you struggling with? What do you do when you have this problem? Because there's my opinion, there's no self-made millionaires. No one is a self-made success. It all takes other people. One small example, dude, I remember when I was back doing, I don't know, 100, 200 listings a year. And we would have to go to the house and measure and put the key box on. I would have my initial listing consultation, come back in the office and do my thing. A day or two later, I would have to go back out and measure and put the key box on and all that. And you were just like, hey, this was one of the biggest things operationally and efficient wise you taught me was, dude, why are you going there twice? Measure the damn house while you're there. That way you're ready to go. And I'm like, well, who moved my cheese? I've always been doing it this way, and type of thing. So I've always been doing it this way and it worked, but I guess I'll just take a boat to Cape Canaveral, type of thing. I'll do it a little differently. So having other people, whether it's in a mastermind, a coach, and I'm not trying to sell the idea. I'm just a believer in it.
No, I think you're a product of it too.
I'm a product of books, trainings, coaching, and masterminds, period.
That's something I wanted to ask you. How many books on leadership would you guess you've read?
Well, there's 30 right there. Probably read half of them. How many books on leadership have I read or listened to? Here's my asterisk that every book is 10 times too long. Says the high D.
Right. Says the classic entrepreneur that wants it's a process, Todd. It's
I know. No. Shut up. But, oh gosh, dude. One a month is 240. Couple hundred.
Hundreds, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's, I say that to give people a sense of scope, right? 20-ish years in business, 200 books. God, if you even had to guess how many people you've interviewed, 500 probably over the years.
Whether in a hiring situation or a mastermind, leading a mastermind or being involved in a mastermind after hours or anything.
And I think this is so important to highlight that it's not about just doing it. It's not about reading the book and then going to execute and you're fantastic at it the third time. We're talking at this point, thousands of reps that you've gotten. I'm going to say that again for everybody for every fast-paced entrepreneur, if you've hung in this long, get a couple extra breakthroughs here, right? But be honest with yourself. How many reps have you gotten at hiring, at firing, at being strategic with your team? I know we're going to have to wrap up here soon. This is something I really wanted to ask you. What are, let's say the top couple, maybe even 3 exercises that you do to figure out where the team is? I'll give you a primer. What comes to mind is the rank and review system, where you take your org chart and you get honest with it. And you say, based on this person's performance, not who they are as a person, not how much I like them, not if I want to go have a beer with them, like just performance. Where would they rank on a scale of 1 to 5? 5 is absolute near perfection when it comes to productivity, performance. They are an apex predator in your industry. 1 is absolutely dismal performance and probably terrible attitude to go along with it. And the rule is you cannot pick 3. And the reason for that is picking 3 is like being on the fence, right? It's neutral ground. Mm-hmm. It's not actually making a decision whether this person is a high performer or low performer, and it's giving you a way out. And before you know it, if you are allowed to pick 3s, your whole organization will be like, 3, they could be a 4 one day, or, right? So 1 to 5, can't pick 3, and then zoom out and look at that org chart when you're done. And I think that's one of the best concrete examples I can give somebody as to how you look at the organization and rank and review them. For you, what are some of the things you use in that light to hold the organization accountable?
I really like the CASH conversation. KASH, knowledge, attitude, skills, and habit. Whether you do it once a week, once a month, hey, talk to me. What have you done in the last week, last month to increase your knowledge in the subject matter field that you're in? Well, I did this, I did that. Okay, cool. No judgment, no shame. What has your attitude been this last week, 2 weeks, month? Well, how's your attitude been? What's been going on in your life? Let's talk about that. What's your approach to what you do for a career? Skills. How are you working on your skills, learning to play chess instead of checkers? What have you been doing? No shame, no judgment. What are you doing? And then let's talk about your habits. When you lay your eyes down at bed at night, when you wake them up in the morning, what do you start doing? Do you instantly go to the device and click the blue app and scroll forever? Or do you actually do maybe something productive? You know my thoughts on apps. So CASH talk, knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits routinely, I think, is a big deal. I intend when I improve the chess game, I want to have level 10 meetings to become more efficient. Level 10 from Gino Wickman and those guys. So, and then, again, the DISC assessment, I'll go back to it. Going back once a year, reviewing that. If there's all kinds of tools out there, but that's just my hands down favorite. because we were joking earlier, people like Fierce Conversations, people change and they forget to tell you. And so, and you change too, Mr. and Mrs. Leader. So you need to check yourself. And a lot of this stuff, I'll wrap this part up. You have to do it in the mirror first. You have to have those self conversations first, I think is important, and then have them with others.
And we're going to have to do a round 2 because I just there's a whole can of worms that I want to open and we're just not going to have time. So we're going to,
no problem.
I'm voluntarily making it mandatory.
Deal.
If we were to take Todd Paxton, how many years have you been in business now? 23?
Real estate 20. Yeah.
After 20 years of figuring out who you are, figuring out what works for you, figuring out what doesn't work for you, if we were to build that guy into a cocktail, what ingredients would go into it?
What ingredients would go into me as a cocktail? Well, first, I think it has to be a good glass, a substantial glass. And if you'll notice for the watchers, I have a substantial water glass and a substantial bourbon glass.
I mean, when he's saying this, everybody, if you're just listening, these things probably weigh 3 pounds each. I mean,
they're awesome. They're looking like the antique crystal glassware we used to sell at auctions when I was a kid. Having a substantial glass with a thick bottom, a firm foundation. So substantial and firm foundation. I like one big rocks, and that way it's just efficient. It doesn't melt too fast or too slow. I would put a pour of a couple of fingers of Heaven's Door, fine Tennessee bourbon in there, straight bourbon whiskey from Tennessee.
It's a mouthful,
there.
Right?
Yeah, it is a mouthful more ways than one. It's very good. I would go out back and pick a sprig of mint and twist the mint and around the lip. And I would stir up just maybe a dash of bitters. And I would stir it with my spoon that I get my coffee every morning. Every morning I make coffee, and in a little mason jar, I've got cocoa powder, not chocolate, not Hershey's, cocoa powder. And I put it in my milker and I froth it up and I make the coffee. It's an act. It's a ritual. It's a habit, right? Mm-hmm. And I use that spoon to stir it. And it gives you a little taste of cocoa and mint in this bourbon. So there you go.
I love this so much because you said the word ritual. And I think especially every man I know who starts to get in, like, it sounds so weird to say, but as they get a certain age, right, which I'm going to qualify as around 40, things shift and your perspective shifts and your priorities shift and your rituals hopefully shift with them.
Yeah, man.
And they become more meaningful and grounding and create a whole level of certainty with them. So I think I appreciate that on a different level because of just knowing you in that regard, but also the specificity that you have there. For everybody who knows disc, you can tell Todd has a very high C that shows up the hand-picked mint sprig rubbed around the eye. But that is, to your point about knowing the disc, why it's so useful, because now if I didn't know this guy, I'd be like, wow, he really values the data, the details, and getting it right. If I were to go out and build this cocktail, substantial glass, one rock, a firm foundation, pour of Heaven's Door, hand-picked mint sprig, and a dash or two of bitters. If you have any technology difficulties that day, I'm going to say 10 dashes of bitters.
Yeah.
Because I've seen you slam that keyboard a couple times.
I don't like tech.
So if I were to build this cocktail, what would we call it?
What would we call it?
What would we name it?
Ferociously simple.
Ooh, why ferociously?
We're only here once, man. We got to attack it. We got to live life with vim, vigor, and love, and be nice, be ethical, be caring, be loving, all the right things. You can still be all those good, wholesome, right things and ferocious, and just, leaving the legacy is important. And part of that journey is being ferocious. So
cheers to that, brother.
Cheers to that, bro.
Okay. So as we wrap up here, man, we talked about a lot. Death.
I was unsure how this would go. We have covered a lot of ground.
It wouldn't be fun if you were sure how it would go.
Well, yeah. True. So true.
So just a fun recap, like my notes, if you're watching the video, you can see I scribbled a whole page of notes here. And, we talked about the actual, like the how do I want to say this? The important differences of knowing what is a life and death situation and what is just business, right? Like when the stakes are high and when people's fear is getting the best of them. We talked about board thoughts and some of the top things that you and I had written on the whiteboard. I just told Lindsay this story the other day that forever we had next to my desk a printout of a scene from The Wolf of Wall Street where it said, the only thing holding you back is the bullshit story you keep telling yourself. And it's so funny because I didn't know I was going to be a coach. I didn't know I was going to dedicate my life to this and helping people stomp those stories out. But I think it's fun to have the visual of an office where people are highlighting, like, this is what we're all about. And we did that with a whiteboard. We talked about the young bull and the old bull story. That was fun. You said I'm built for battle, not finesse. And that you can, like, for business owners to know that you can actually live without the people you think you can't live without on your team in business. The rank and review process, cash talks, some of your, I'll say, top tips for hiring and motivating your talent, embracing failure, learn the disc, and of course, the ferociously simple cocktail that would be Todd Paxton. Anything on your heart you want to share with people before we go?
I have to have a wrestling reference in any podcast. So, that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so, right? I would say look for the behavior itself. In this hour or time we've had together, I've learned, again, the importance of a great duo. It's just like getting back on the bicycle, man, like it was back in the day, like spitball it, man. We have that. We do it every time on the phone. We think it's a 5-minute combo and we look up, it's an hour and 20. So having someone to point out your blind spots, cover your blind spots, guide you in an appropriate way, help you, listen to you. You said it, like, I think I'm going to ask the question here in a fill in the blank manner. Instantly, hey man, this is cool. Maybe I'm overthinking in this moment. I might be overthinking. I want to do well for you and your listeners. I want to help anybody that I can with my bonehead stories. But I really was just like, man, we're doing so well together. So in parting words, always be looking for for talent. Always be looking for the right person at the same time while you are taking care of the people that are already in your world. That's also important because the grass is only greener where you water it.
Cheers to that. Again, that's a good place to hang our hat today, I think. So for everyone listening, you can find Todd at...
on the internet.
Well, it's funny because literally as I was saying that, actually, you're not going to find Todd. He doesn't want to be found right now. Let me qualify that. We're in the stages of planning some kind of retreat where we won't see any people for about 3 days because we got to recharge sometimes. But let's say somebody wanted to learn more about your business, wanted to learn more about working with you potentially, like in a world where people can work remotely. You never know where talent may come knocking.
That's right.
Send
us a message. Send us a message on I call it the Facebook. On Facebook, the Paxton Group in Southern Indiana. Todd at thepaxtongroup.com. I've got the Instagrams and the Twitters and all that I could do a better job keeping up with. So,
but they're not hard to get a hold of. You
no,
send somebody,
call Chris Goodman. He'll find me.
Yeah. And here, we're going to make it simple for you, everybody. Go to the show notes, click the link, and find them right there. And while you're down there, click on the link for our friends at Heaven's Door. Like I said today, if you've gotten your interest piqued here, we're having the straight bourbon whiskey. Also recommend, and don't worry, friends. We're going to have more from Heaven's Door on future episodes.
It was really good. It was really good. Thank you, Adam, and those guys over there for taking care of us today. Yeah,
I totally agree. It's going to be a staple moving forward here. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if you found value in the show, share it with somebody who needs to hear it today. Just send it to them in an email, send them a quick text, whatever you got to do. And as always, we appreciate if you share it on social media, tag us at Goodman Coaching or at Bourbon and Breakthroughs. Again, we're not strangers on social media. You can find us pretty easily. And it really means the world to us when you share it out and help us get people like Todd and our other guests and these great bourbons into their hands and into their ears. So thanks again, everybody. We'll catch you on the next episode of Bourbon and Breakthroughs. Until then, cheers, brother, and cheers, everybody at home.